Hey everybody, Tony Jenkins here, and today we're here to talk about setting up your snowmobile suspension properly and how to get your proper ride height. Setting up your ride height is super important. That way you can get the full capabilities of your suspension and make sure that it's working proper. So you need some simple tools. Start off with the owner's manual. Right here, Fox provides the owner's manual on how to set up your sag, and Skidoo also has information on how to set up the sag of the machine. Simple tape measure with metric system, a marker to mark, so then you have the same area to measure from, a notepad in a pin, and then a Allen key, a 4mm Allen key. That way you can loosen the collar on the shock, and then you can be able to change the preload. And then Skidoo provides a tool for the rear torsions, and this is so you can actually tighten the torsion springs or loosen depending if you need to add more preload or take preload away. And then for this, we have a strap, and the strap is basically just used to lift the snowmobile to get the weight of the machine off the suspension, so then you can figure out and get the correct measurements of the shock shaft. And then also, if you need to, use a floor jack to lift the front end of the machine up. That way you can also get the full measurement of the shock when needed. You're also gonna need somebody to come help you. That way that you can get on the machine with all your weight and your gear, and then they can also help measure and record the information that you're going to learn about. So we're gonna start with the front of the snowmobile to get these measurements from the shocks. So right now we're going to get the overall length of the shock itself, and then we're going to get the length of the shock stroke. That information is actually provided on the Fox box itself. If you do not have the box, it's pretty easy. You just got to get the snowmobile, get the weight of the machine off the shocks to be able to get the full shock stroke and the full length of the shock. So now that we have the weight of the machine off the shocks, now that we're going to get the overall length of the shock measurement. And to do that, what we have here is a metric tape measure. So you want to go to the center of the eyelet to center of the other eyelet. So we're right at 445 millimeters, and we're going to call this measurement X. So with the weight of the machine still off the shock, the next measurement that we need to get is the overall length of the shock stroke. To be able to do that, you need to include the bump stop as well. 149 millimeters. So we're going to write down 149 millimeters as Z. Again, this measurement is provided on the Fox box, but we wanted to clarify our measurements and they do match. So now that we've moved the floor jack out of the way, the next measurement that we're going to get is a fully weighted measurement. And that to include is everything from a day-to-day basis, a full tank of fuel, your helmet, your backpack, and don't forget about your accessories that you might put on top of your snowmobile. That way you have an most accurate weight of the machine. The next measurement, we want to make sure that we're straight up and down, and we're going to bounce on the suspension or the snowmobile so that it can reset itself. Now I'm going to have my friend measure the shock. Now that he has this side measured, make sure to repeat that to the other side, just to make sure that you're centered. So now that we have our ride height with rider's weight, which is going to equal Y, which was 415 millimeters. So now we're going to grab our calculator and use the formula to calculate sag. To calculate that, we're going to use X minus Y divided by Z. So we want to be right about 30%, and we're at 20%. But before we make the changes to the front end, we need to check the rear. So now that we got the front suspension done, we're going to move to the rear. It's a little bit different than measuring what we did to the front, because the shocks are located in the center of the track. And to do that, it's very difficult, so we're going to show you a different way. So to get the uncompressed measurement, we need to make sure there's no weight on the machine, and to do that, you're not going to lift the track up off the ground. You just want to get the shocks at its full length. To do this, we're going to use a tie down to get the full length. So now we're going to take our marker and make a mark on the rear of the machine so you can get a consistent spot to measure from. So we're right at 838 millimeters. So we're going to call this number X, which was 838. Now we're going to compress the rear suspension, and we have found that compressing the rear suspension in the center of the track is a lot better because if you do it in the rear, you find that you're lifting the front end of the skis and you're not getting all the suspension compressed properly. So the next steps is we're going to lay a towel so we don't scratch the tunnel. We're going to take a ratchet strap and compress the suspension completely. So we're going to measure from the rear of the bumper straight to the ground, and we're at 535 millimeters. So to get the total travel, we're going to take the total length, which was 838 millimeters, and then subtract that by 535, which was our compressed. So now the total travel with the equation we just did is 303 millimeters. So our next step is we're going to release the suspension and we're going to get the weighted amount. And to get this measurement, you want to make sure you're fully geared and fully fueled up so that you have the full weight of the machine. Don't forget to jump up and down 3 times to reset the shocks. $750. So now to be able to get our sag equation, what we do is we take x minus y and divide that by z. And now remember, x was our length, y was our sag, and z was our stroke. So we'll start with 838 minus sag, which would be 740, equals 98. Divide that by 303 times 100. So we're at 32%. Where you want to be with your sag is between 25 and 35%. So we're pretty much right where we want to be. So my sag was correct, but if my sag percentage wasn't correct, this is how you would add more spring preload. Simply take the tool provided through Ski-Doo, go to the torsion block, and we're going to go to position 2 to add more preload pressure. By adding preload, it's going to shorten the percentage gap. So our front end is at 20%, and if you remember right, we want to be between 25 and 35%. So we actually need to take some preload off of these shocks. Taking a 4mm Allen, we're going to loosen the shock collar and then loosen the spring itself. So now we're going to repeat this on the other side and then get the exact same measurements that we have on this side. Now, after we're done with that, we're going to check the sag again with the ride height and rider weight, and then to make sure that we're right between that 25 and 35%. During this, you might be going back and forth until you can get it dialed to that 30%. So obviously we've been in the shop setting up the correct sag. This is just the first step of many. Once you get on the snow, then you're going to be playing with rebound and dampening. So with any tuning, it's really important to take notes so you have a really good baseline that you can go back to. So I hope this helps get the most out of your Fox suspension. Fox provides a really good baseline right from the packaging. For the rest of you guys, I hope you have a really good winter. If you have any more questions, leave a comment below. Feel free to follow me at Tony Jenkins on Instagram or on Facebook. But I hope you all have a fantastic winter and you all go ride.